Hi there and welcome back. Let's go through a nice skill builder of an everyday object, which I believe it will help you get through some basic tools, basic motions, and build a volume and get you rolling. So what I'm looking at is actually this perfume bottle, something that I had in my wardrobe, and I said, let's just build it. It helps you because you relate to more everyday objects and it helps with learning. So I'll show you the pictures. Feel free to do some screenshots, and if you want to do this exercise, follow along. Subscribe if you haven't, and to the ones returning, thank you for putting up with my mess. Sorry. So there we go. That's the set of measurements that we've got there, and it's going to help do everything on scale, or as much as we can on scale. So this is it, 6 by 6 centimeters and 9 tall. That's the prerequisite, and let's start doing this. I'm going to be working here using the orthographic views. So I'm going to be clicking here. I'm going on to the top view, orthographic, and I want to center it based on the origin. What I'll use here for precision in curves, I'll be using the key point curve toolbox, and I'll be taking the line here, and I'll just alt snap it here on the origin, and I'll go in the X direction, and I'll hold down alt, so I'm snapping it here onto the grid again, and I'll pick the curve, go into the information window, and under attributes I will give it the length of 60 millimeters. I'll be centering, so I'll pick that curve, and under transform I'll be setting the pivot to the center, and I'll move it. In this view, holding alt down, and with the middle mouse button I'll click next to the origin. It brings it dead center there, and now I will click on move, and relative is what I'll use, and I'll move it along the y-axis minus 30 millimeters. So I'll type in here 0 minus 30. That brings it down here. Okay, now I'll take that curve, copy paste it, I'll move its pivot, I'll set the pivot, and with control I'll click here next to this point. Control is snapping to CVs, alt is to the grid, and control alt is to curves. Now I want to have this side of it because we've got that, and I want this side here. So for that I will be rotating around the y-axis, z-axis. That's one way to do it, by eye. Or what we can do is we can type in here, so click on rotate, type in here 0 for x, space, 0 for y, and then for the z-axis, that's the third number, I'll type in the degree that I want to move it by. That's that. What I can do is take that same curve, copy paste it again, I'll copy paste it, move its pivot here, and I'll go into the information window, and under transforms I can type in these things. I can work with the scale, I can work with the rotation and the translation. Now what I'll do, I'll rotate in Z minus 90. So to the left it was plus, and to the right it was minus. And now I can take this curve, copy paste it, move it, and now I'll hold down control and right mouse button, so that it means the motion upwards, close to this point, and it will snap it in that direction where that point sits. That's the movement based on the pivot. So that's something for you to practice because it will help you get these things dialed in super easy. Now, I'll take these curves and I want to group them. So I'll go under Edit, Group, and I'll preserve the position. And because it is on the origin and build around the origin, the pivot is in the center. If it would be here on the side, it would move your pivot still to the origin. So grouping always moves the origin of your, moves the pivot of your new group, your new object onto the origin. So you might need to be careful there. I'm switched into the left view and I've got that. So I've got the perimeter there. And I'll copy paste this group and I'll move it in Z 90 millimeters. So 0 for X, 0 for Y, and then 90 going up. So this gives us this plane at the top, we've got the plane at the bottom, and we see we've got this twist going in the object itself. That's one thing that we can observe. The other thing that we can see is it's actually, when it's laid down, it sits flat on the surface. That means that actually these two are the same. So these lines at the top and the bottom are parallel. We just need to connect that corner to the next one, if you want to put it that way. So I'll use here an edit point curve. I'll control click on that point. And now I'm going to go from this point diagonally to that one. There we go. Now I will repeat this for the rest of the lines. So you can already see the wireframe of that volume. Now I'll show you how we build the bottom surface here and the top surface, and I'll do it in two different ways because you can do it in actually so many ways. One way would be to build a skin. So that's surfaces and skin between this line and this line and using, I'll just do it. Connect that to that. Click on here where you see proportional and get to the point where it says off, and then connect ends. And that's one way we can do it. Another way would be to build a square. So we'll hit free boundary on everything, turn off this, and we'll go 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 sides give you 1 square. You can also use a bi-rail, a monorail. So bi-rail would be 2 generations and 2 rails. I'll do that on the side here. So we will practice all of the surface generation things. So let's right click here. We've got the rail surface. So I'll delete this and I'll show you a monorail, how it works. So the monorail is 1 generation and 1 rail curve. Since those two are sitting 90 degrees to each other and same length, if I do this, I've got the same surface and it's going to have the position continuity there. And you don't have to believe me, I'll demonstrate this. So we've got the generation and the rail, and I'll do here bi-rail. So that means 2 generation curves and 2 rail curves. And we've got that line, and these 2 edges. It generated me that surface there. And if we do the evaluation of position, there we go. You can see that is in there. A monorail, if we do this as a monorail along that, will not get you this result. You need all 4 sides defined, and then you will get the surface in. So here we could build a square to that line, this one, and this one here. What else can we build? We've got a bi-rail, we've got a square. Skin would not help much because that line compared to that one is rotated by 90 degrees, so the surface will be odd. But let's demonstrate that. So you see that's not working, that's not twisting in the right direction. Probably if the UVs would be set up differently, then it would work, but I'm not gonna go into that detail, it just takes too much time. Okay, so we've got the square, we've got the bi-rail. Let's see the monorail. So you get a glimpse of what the monorail would be doing. That's that line along this one. And it just gives you one plane, which is normal. It's sliding one line along one trajectory. It's not enough. But let's see, we could do it with one generation curve and two rail curves. And let's see what that gives us. And that's this line along this curve and along this one. And in this case, that's also one way to do it. And let's try a skin between this line and this line. And that's also one way to do it. So you've seen several ways that we can do these things. It's up to you. Try all of them because it's about learning here. So the checks are here. It's all good. Position everywhere. Jobs are good. Perfect. So that's very simple tools. Moving, rotating. You can also scale things. It's easy. Snapping, we've gone through that. Now let's start building these things here. So we've got this image, and we can see that that plane to that point there, we've got 3.3 centimeters. So let's do that. Actually, let's do 3.2 for this line, 3.3 for that. So we'll leave 1 millimeter gap between the two. That's important when we get all the detail in. And we can see here we've also got a very nice chamfer running around there. That's all interesting tools. Let's see how we can build them. So I'll first take that surface there. One easy way to get that down there would be just copy paste and move, but I want the history of it. So what I'll do, I'll be going into object edit and offset, and I'll use active view here, or geometry average. Geometry average is good for surfaces, active view is for lines when you're in an orthographic view. So the distance, let's set this up to 32 millimeters. And we click on this arrow. So it's still 32. If I would have typed in minus 32, it would be the same thing, but it's just a matter of how you want to do this. So that's one line there, in. And now I'll do the same thing with 33 millimeters. That's it. Now I'll take that object and I'll go into display and make it invisible. And what I want to do to keep the history, because history is essential for the way I build things, I'll pick these surfaces and I'll offset them, and I'll make sure that the distance is 0. This basically creates a set of copies that are living off of the history on these main surfaces, and I can have a separate set here and a separate set at the bottom. The reason why I'm doing this, in older versions of Alias, once I was doing, let's say, a trim divide operation on one side, it would delete the construction history, and so that's something I want to avoid. So I'm picking now an object, and that would be the offset group, and I'll make it invisible. So you see there, perfect. I'll pick that surface and I'll intersect it. So we will go for that under surface edit, and I'll hit intersect here, that surface with the bottom ones, and for that I'll do a lasso selection like that. That does it. I'll trim this back here, and here the trim surface tool, I'll lasso select here. I'll set these crosses at the bottom. That's my glass volume. And now I'll take these surfaces here. I'll intersect basically with this. Take that. I'll be taking this surface with spacebar. I've accepted that, so I don't need to go with my mouse down there. It helps with the speeding up of our process. Lasso selection, and then trim again. Here at the top. That's it. Now that gets trimmed back to that area there. That's cool. I'll save this up. There we go. That's saved up. And now let's hit Viz 1 here, because I want to shade everything properly. So I want, for those surfaces here at the top, a separate shader compared to the lower one. And that's Viz 1 is basically the hardware shader. And for that we go under Viz and shader lister, and we've got the default shader. If we click here on plus, it's going to generate a new one. Double click that, and I'll just change the color into dark tone there. Now right click that and assign to objects. That's one way to do this. And for the bottom one, the bottom part, I'll click on new shader. I'll call the new shader here, change the name into glass. Top shader, I'll name it, so I'll double click that and I'll name it cap. And the glass, I'll make it bluish. And in the properties, I'll set up some transparency to it. And then another way to do this assignment is you can drag and drop onto the surface. You see you've got the see-through effect there. That's really cool, but it's going to take some computing power away. So it's up to you. Save this up. I've got the cap, I've got the bottom area. Now let's go into detailing this. So the picture shows us here. We've got a chamfer, which is give or take 2 mil deep. And let's see the top picture there. And it's give or take 2 mil wide. So one way to do this would be the following thing. We could go into surface fillet, and we click here on the G0 chamfer. The tangent offset, I'll set it to 2. I'll have it without the crown. And this gives me 1 chamfer. There. But it's not doing what I'd like to do. So what I can go and do is undo it. And what I want to do is take that surface, I'll offset it by 2 millimeters going downwards. I will be intersecting that surface there with the bottom ones there. I'll take that surface and I'll go into display and template it because I'm not going to be using it. Or I might as well take that surface and go into Windows. This is a new thing you're learning here. Bring up the object lister. This allows us to set up layers where we deposit various bits of geometry. So under there, what we can do is right click here and click new layer from selected objects, and we will call it curves CRV construction, and I'll add it there. So that is going to be added there. Now, one little problem that we can notice here is that we've got annual changes because of that twist there. When we go into this picture here, we don't have that. We've got everything nice and cleanly defined. That means that that plane and this other plane, they sit vertically above each other, and that allows for that clean chamfer there. So let's aim to do that. So what I will be doing here is the following thing. I'll pick the curved surface on these, delete them. This is then on the wrong layer. I'll put it in a new layer called work. And all the surfaces will be part of that. Actually, let's pick all the curves and assign them to the curve and construction layer. We can turn that off, and now we can pick these objects here, except the lights, and add them to the work layer. This keeps everything nice and tidy. And I'll click here on show lights because I don't want to pick them by accident and put them somewhere else. The lights are the ones Alias is using to show us our object here. Now back to our task there. I'll bring up, so query edit history on that plane there, and I'll do -2. So I've built it now to be 9.2 millimeters high. Not a bad thing. And this curve, this surface here, suddenly will become our construction helper. So that means that we can add that to curves and construction because we will not be using it actually. Now we've set 2 mil height difference, we've got that dialed in, and the picture shows us give or take 3 millimeters. Let's go with 3 millimeters there. So how do we get 3 millimeters in here, keeping history and all that? For that, we can use a tool called the tubular offset tool. So I've got it for me here. So type in here 3 mil, and I'll just use no surface. I'll just use curve and surface. Click on that edge there. Turn on auto update, and there we go. We got a curve on the surface. There we go. That perfect. Now what we can do is, for the sake of speed, we can do skins between these two. And let's do that. That's one. Let's see the control points. Let's see these on that. That's okay. And it's looking good. We can add some little crown to it. Now the reason why I was looking at that is normally when we build curved surfaces, curves on surface, the CV layout is jumbled up, so you don't get this nice even distribution. And here we get it because we've got simple shapes. Once you've got it more curved shapes, that's when it starts going wrong. And I can demonstrate that. Hopefully, if I run this here and we build a curved surface between this, we build a skin between that curved surface and this one. And you already see that's different. To overcome that problem, you would be needing to build one line from that point to this one, and one from that point to that one, and build a bi-rail. And then that goes through like that. And it has a different CV layout. It's already better. But the bi-rail would allow you to control that. And if it doesn't look good, so let's see, that along this curved surface and this one, if it wouldn't be looking good, you would just need to click here on rebuild on the two rails, and it's already better. Rebuild helps clean up those lines. You might get a deviation compared to the curved surface, but it gives you a cleaner surface. So this gets undone. We don't need that curve there. I'll stick with the skins because I can add a bit of crown to them towards the outside. I'll leave everything as default and run this through. Now we can trim this back and we can intersect. So we can take these two surfaces, control click them, hold Alt down, so kept control held down, and we'll go into surface edit, intersect this one and this one. That means we can trim these away. Let's turn on Vis 1 and let's take these surfaces and go into the shader lister and assign the correct shader to it. All this goes onto the proper layer. That keeps your work nice and tidy. So that's one step closer to that. Now we can see that we've got from that line to that line 1 centimeter. But what I'll do first is this thing here. I'll take that surface and offset it down by 1 millimeter, or let's say 1.5. So I've done the 1.5 mil offset down there. You can see the surface sitting there. Now what I want to do is the following thing. I'll bring up the curves. So I'll take that node there. And what I want to do is I've gone in 2 millimeters here, and I want 1 centimeter more. So we will be offsetting that by 12 mil inwards in the active view. So that helps out. And now what we can do is take one line, bring it to that intersection, and go upwards. What I want is that that line intersects that plane and the upper plane. And we'll be using the profile tool to build that dip there. So that's literally somewhere here. Click on that, got profile. I'll make sure it's natural. Frame travel is radial. Everything can stay radial at the moment. It's important that it's not set as surface normal because we're not building to a surface normal. So let's just stay with natural, and we'll pick the lines, accept them, hit done again. Now we're taking the profile direction, the trajectory there, and we've built that. Some might say you could have done it with a draft tool. Now, the draft tool is good for this. I'm not saying no to that, but every time you do a little change in the draft tool, it rebuilds all the surfaces, so you're losing construction history, and I really don't like that. And for this exercise, we don't really need draft angles. That's for a bit more advanced topics. So I'll take these two surfaces, intersect them with these other two, keep interior bits, and now I'll be intersecting this surface with the remainder of these four, and I'll trim everything away. So this gets kept here. We need to take that object and intersect it with that surface there. So that gets intersected with that, and we'll keep this inner bit. And now at the top we can see that we've got the curves. All this gets placed onto the correct layer, and depending on which layer is clicked there, when you're generating your geometry, it will be placed on that layer. And if it's not clicked, then it's going to go onto the default layer. You see, this has been built on that layer, so don't get scared if stuff disappears. It might be just on the wrong layer. Add it where it should be, and then you're good to go. Hide this away. So we've got the cap detailed, got the bottom there in, so we can go ahead and start detailing the rest. Now for the work layer, what I will be doing is the following thing. I want to take the cap now and set it on a separate layer so I can work on the glass part without having to hide that away. So in the object lister, I'll hit here, new layer from selected objects. This saves you a few clicks, and this is going to be called work, the cap. That gets hidden away. Now we've got that there. That's work. Double click the layer, then you can type in the new name, glass. Super. That goes up there. So with the middle mouse button, with the left mouse button, I'm dragging it up there. All good. So we've got the glass there. Back to the reference pictures, we can see this. So we've got a certain tube in here, which is 2 centimeters in diameter. And we can see that from the edge there, it's sitting 1.7 centimeters in. So let's go ahead and do that, and we will be doing these steps as well. Let me see if I managed to capture that. No, I haven't. But anyway, how do we build this centerpiece here? Now what I want to do is I want to make my work as easy as I can. So that bit at the top there, I will be building a rotational object, so a revolve, and that's a new tool for you, the revolve tool. If that's 2 centimeters in diameter, and this is give or take 2 millimeters, 2.5, that's already enough info for me. And we can see that the height of this is give or take 2.5 centimeters. 2 centimeters tall. No, I will go with 2.5 because it doesn't look like a square. So in here, I'll take whichever view I want, and I will be generating myself a line, which I'm going to be setting up to be 2 centimeters long. I'll center the pivot and move it, holding Alt down and middle mouse button clicking next to that line. That gives me that diameter. What I want to do is, you've seen here we've got these steps, but I want that volume first, so that's what I'm aiming at. And another line, I'll put it dead center now. So holding Control and clicking on that point, going up, and I'll give it the length of 25 mil. So that curve is 20 mil long, and that is 25, although that looks less. Let's go with 23. I'm trying to get the proportions right. And we've set 2.5, that gives us 15 at the top there from the 20. So if I go only half of that, that's 7.5 millimeters. So Control, snap it there. With the middle mouse button, I went to the side, pick the curve, and go here, 7.5. I'll take another curve going down. This one, I want it bigger, but I don't care how big it is, so I'll just scale it. And that's the scale. The scaling goes based on pivot. And let's set this up to be 13 mil high. So I'll take that curve, I'll copy paste it, move its pivot, one with a higher number, move its pivot there. I'll bring it over here and I'll scale it with the information window opened up till it hits 13 mil. We can type in 13 here if you want to be super precise. Move the pivot with Control-Alt along the line and snap it there just to be sure that we're hitting that as it should be. And now what I want is the following thing. A line going from here across towards this one. So with Control, snap it there, Control-Alt and middle mouse button down there. That gives us this bit here, where if we zoom in, we can see how it's being built. So we will be emulating all that in there. I want to do that in these curves because once I've got that dialed in correctly, everything is easy peasy. Now, I've also said that I want a gap of 0.5 overall. So it's not a big panel gap. 0.5 on both sides is 0.25. So I'll take that curve, I'll do an offset of that, and I'll hit 0.25 this other direction. Now we can take the under object, edit, the extend tool, double click it, keep merge on it, extrapolate as an option. And now what I'll do, I'll bring that down there. This one gets extended to that point there. And I will add one line here from that point to that point. So we're closing the gap. Whenever we can do a rendering, everything is closed and it's easy to do that. Now let's bring in that level of detail. So almost all the way from there, we can take one curve, and now I'm going to be eyeballing it, bring it down here. That gives us that point, and then we will do this. So that looks 0.5 mil deep, so 0.75 of a mil deep. That's the area where the cap is actually locking in, so that's why that's important. And that looks 2 mil tall, so align and make that one 2 mil long, and then that gap feels like 1.2 mil. So one more line, go down here, 1.2. And now what we will be doing is one line to that point, another one from there to there, and we will be picking the CV. So go into the picking options here, CV, and we will be moving that CV, the middle mouse button in, and generating that there. Now I'll extend this back to this point here, this one to this point. The reason why we've done 2 lines to the center and move the CV is that we know these 2 lines compared to the center here, if we were to draw a straight line, they have the same angle. Now I'll take these 2 curves, turn them into degree 2. I'll take these CVs and then click center pivot, so it brings the pivot between the 2, and I'll non-proportional scale them to each other, then move them. That means it moves them in Z. like that. The reason why I'm doing that, you can see here, there's a slight crown to that. And now this curve gets to be a degree 2 as well. I'll take that CV and then I'll move it up and outward until it gives us that feeling there. Okay, now that curve we don't need anymore. That curve, well, it can be extended back, or let's move the pivot. Let's extend it back to that point there. And this curve now loses history, goes up to that point there, this one down to that point, and this curve extends all the way back there. Now we can extend these a little bit back and go into finding the blend curve, or let's keep it easier for this here. We will be doing some curve fillets because everything is sitting on a plane, so it's easier to do that. It's extending and clicking Control Alt on the line, so it extends only to that line. So curve fillet between these two. And I'll get 1 mil center radius. That's that. Bring up the history, trim them back with automatic. And now these two, they get a radius. Let's say 0.5. So it doesn't want to do it. It's not a problem. Let's go ahead and do this radius here. So that's a lot of prep work as you see it, but it helps us to get these things in, dialed in nicely, and it takes away a lot of the hustle of getting those things done manually then later on. So we've got that section in there. Let's try this one as well. There we go. It's all good. Let's see this. So this is ending sharply there, so that's good. It can stay like that. This can be extended all the way to here. We'll give it one more line going up a little bit, and it will help us a lot. Now, let's take these objects and I will be grouping them. So for me, that's Control G. Alt O turns off the CVs. And now we'll go into surfaces and revolve these. And I'll be using a local pivot, Z, as the direction. We want 4 segments, and that's 1 bit done. And you see how easy that was. And now what I want is a little radius there, and actually this will be a lot easier. We don't need that curve anymore. We just need this curve. I'll move its pivot onto the center there, and I'll do the same revolve. And now we need to fill this hole, and the easiest way to do that is a planar surface. So double click that, create history, chain select. Chain select means if edges connect the tangent, it will work, and it all has to sit on one plane. That's a simple, nice, clean surface there. And now we can run a radius between that, and it's going to be G1. Let's say G2, because I want the quality there. Form factor 1. Click these all the way around. And I'll set the radius to 1. Click build. Check the pictures. So it is a big radius, but not that big. So let's say 0.75. Auto update. Continuity checks. There we go. Turn on the controls. It looks nice and clean. All good. All off. Switch to Viz 1. That's shaded correctly. That's done. Now we can save up. I recommend saving before using the fillet tool because it has a nasty habit of, biting you. Now that volume is done. We need to work on the glass. So let's call this into a new layer, and I'll call it work and button. That's good. And then let's check these pictures. So we can see that we've got there that radius going in. So that's the radius going in. That's good. So that's our plane, that's the radius to it. Then we've got another one which is sitting, give or take 2 mil higher up. So for that, I will be offsetting that surface by 2 mil. And then we've got, give or take, another 2 mil till we get to that. So offset this plane by 4 mil. You can see that's already intersecting there. And what I want to do is the following bit. Let's see the curves. Delete the history on them, because we know that's correct. And we will move their pivot onto this line here, and then move them upwards, so in Z. And in an orthographic view, I will be looking at this. Control Alt and right mouse button click on this here. And you see The miracle of building everything onto history using the history function of alias is that you were able to adjust all that without having to build, rebuild. So that's helpful later on. So now that we've got that, let's switch back to the reference pictures. So that's something that you will be doing a lot, looking at the reference pictures. We can see that we've got here a brim, which is 5 mil wide. That means that on the inside here, that step there, that might be actually 6 mil wide. So I'll hide those away. Use a tubular offset tool here and type in 6 and run it along the edges there. Let's call it, say it's 5.5 to give it some space. So that's query editing the line and then typing in what you need. That's that. And now we will be needing a little bit of an angle on the surfaces, because you see here we have an angle there, so it's not going up vertically, it goes in, let's say 1 mil. So 2 mil in and 1 mil. So that's, we've done 5.5. Let's go with 7. Based on that edge there. So I'll make this invisible, and then if you click on display, toggle visibility, you only go back to what you want to see and not bring everything back. Now, skins, again, between these two, a bit of crown for the fun of it, just makes things look better. This gets hidden away, templated, because we will not be needing it. This surface here, this one, so all 4, we'll do a minimal offset of those, and that's important because the plane was just for the reference here. So offset that. If you double click, it brings up the options, or if you click on that little square, it brings up the options. I'll say 0.1 in that direction. And I'll take these surfaces. That was the rail, the square tool, and you see it's generating us here a line that's not straight. So let's set this up to be the same, and this should now straighten everything out. Yes. So those two are controlling the blending between the lines. Now it's correct. So this surface templated as well. And now what we will be doing is a fun bit. This. we should turn it in such a way that it's looking, so that these lines are looking like that direction there. So bring in one line from that point to that point, and this, I'll eyeball it. That means losing the history on it, and I'm rotating and looking at it in such a way that it lines up. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it can be done. I do it is quite precise. Remember, in the real world, you will always have some tolerances. So the reason why I've done that is now I can run some skins between these here. The little crown, that to that, here to here, then this here. With overbuild, it's not a problem. You can get it managed differently as well. You can pick these surfaces, delete them, intersect these skins first between them, trim away the excess, and then do the other skins again. There we go. So that's that there. Let's hide away the cap. That's in there. Make sure you save, because we are now going into the final details there. And most of the times those final details are the ones which will be ruining the fun, meaning radii. That's it, we have to do them. So that's saved up. We will be running the bigger radii here at the bottom. Around here we will be having quite sharp ones, here bigger ones as well. So first run the big ones and then the smaller ones. So that's the bigger one, influenced by the thickness of that. Here the same thing, you can see that it goes in like that. So that's where the fun begins. But up to this point, this was fun as well, in my opinion. So let's hide away the button. All this belongs to the glass bit, and we give it the same material as it should have. And now let's have that fun that I was talking about. So I'll be using the radius tool here, the fillet tool. But what I want is G2 curvature, but I want to have an arc, so chordal radius, so it looks clean and nice, and it doesn't get that much influenced by actual by the actual angle changes between the surfaces. So I'm hiding away the grid because I don't need it now. And let's build this like that. 10 mil is a lot. Go with 5. And then use edge align, actually extend on all of them, and there's a reason why. It's because once we run all these radii, things will get more interesting, so more tools will be showing up. So as you see, these are all, not all of them lining up that nicely. What I want is everything is nice and clean. So what I will be doing is, see those lines are intersecting. Now that's because it's building it correctly. Let's go with the radial 2.5. So let's get this in, radius 2.5. See how that works. Even worse. So, oh, thank you. And this is fine for me because there is no tech input here for this topic, so that's okay. What I will be doing now is taking that surface, untrimming it, and I will be offsetting this surface upwards up to that point there. And we're eyeballing it. It's 4 mil. It's good enough. And now I will be deleting these surfaces, the fillets, because I'm going to be using the freeform blend tool for this. What I want is also a homogeneous line there. Some might not agree, but at the moment I don't care. I don't have tech input for this, so I can do whatever I want. So 4.5, 4.6. So I'll take that curved surface set there. Tubular offset this to 4.6. Run it along there, 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 and there. Now I'll take these surfaces. I'll untrim the last operation out. Look at it in the side view. Pick the curved surface, delete them, and then I'll intersect this with these. Now I'll template that surface. I'll hide it away or put it into this layer here. Now, freeform blend, curvature to curvature. I'll be doing connect ends on the edges, on the exterior bits, and let's go ahead and do these. And no trimming. The reason why I've done these is that we know that everything will align very nicely when we do the little radii. This is all overbuilt, that's not a problem, because now we can go ahead and run these radii here and do that up there as well. I'll offset this one as well. Let's see, 3 mil. You see, history was working really well, and it did help a lot, but I've opened up the history of the surface itself, and that's something I didn't want to have. So let's go 3 down, untrim that, and intersect it with those surfaces. can actually give it only 2 mil because I want some of that surface left over. This gets templated. Hide away everything else. Now, let's take a new one. So 5.5, I want some of that surface left over, so let's go with 3 mil. The reason why I want some surface left over there is to be able to build the rest of the radii. Those get hidden away as well. And now let's build those freeform blends again. There we go. Let's hit here. Instead of connect ends, let's do edge align. See how that changes. That's done there. We will be keeping this bit here. Is that what those little bits are what we need. So we've trimmed all this away. So that's looking more and more like what we are after. So next up will be these edges all the way around and going up there. And at the top there, and bit by bit we will be done quite soon. Add this to the correct layer and save it up before the next step. So I did jump ahead, and what I've done, I made these radii running down here, but I did leave one edge open here so I can demonstrate this to you guys. First of all, I'll build that radius again, but on the sharp edge here, just make sure that I've got this set up as extend on both ends. And that's just to make sure that we get this here. And that is essential for the corner blend tool. This one as well. What I want is a continuity check. So we've got curvature on both sides. Let's take that surface and I'll shade it like that. Because the hardware shader takes always as your the shader for your next generated surface based on the last shader used. So because I've just reopened the file, that was the default material, and now if I generate here, for example, a surface, that's going to be the glass shader. I'll query edit this and I'll hit this up. So the corner blend first wants you to select the 3 radii intersecting in that point, and then it wants a surface to which it wants to build that blend transition from one side to the other. I'll hit accept. And I'll make sure I've got auto update on. Now what I want to do is I want it to look like this. So to be same width here. Same width as the radius coming up. So it doesn't open. I want it to stay parallel here. So what I will do, I'll pull this arrow back. That's roughly it. And that's nice. Let's see what the values were on this one. So That one had 0.1 and 0.9. Let's see if we can replicate that there. So that's 0.1 there. And this one will be 0.9. And doing this so the parameters are the same, so it looks good. That's it. And now I will query edit that corner there. 0.8 and 0.8. And got those in. Select that base. This will be 0.2. Oh, 0.8. And then 0.8 as well. Now this one will be 0.2 because it's the other end of the curve. So the full length is 1, and this is sitting at 0.8, but if this is the starting point of that curve, this will be 0.2. Remember, those curves, we've set them up so that they're all the same length. Let's delete the locators. There we have. That's our bottle. Now, what I want to do is those corners first, and I want to generate them automatically so I can keep as much history as I can. Let's do a radius there. Set this up to edge-align and edge-align. Similar size to this one. So that's done there. And what I will be doing now is I want the radius there. So let's try that over there. And it lines up nicely. That's looking good. And I'll come back to you when I've done all those, because I don't want to bore you with this. So that's done. Let's add a radius around here. So around that edge and that edge. Normally you would want this radius running around that edge to be smaller than that one so it goes across nicely. First save up. It's one of the things I hate about Alias. It tends to crash a lot when doing radii. So we have 2 there. I want 1. And let's go across like that. I want to set the interior to edge line. I'll save first, so let's see if this will get it to crash. No, it didn't. So this is good. Let's set this up to have 2 spans. Maybe it fixes that bug there. There we go. So that's even better. And welcome back. That works there. And what I would be doing now is getting this cleaned up. But that's manual labor they would need to be doing, and as I said, I want to keep the history alive as much as it can. So I'll add one more possible span in there, hopefully cleaning this up a bit more. So we've got clean CV layouts going all the way around. And the corners are what they are. So if this is the case, then let me do it like this. I will bring back the span number to 1. That looks somewhat better, but it doesn't. Now, the next thing that I'll do that radius going at the bottom around. And then I'll demonstrate the cleanup in one corner so you guys can do that as well. But let's finish up the bulk of this work. So I'll go ahead and build a radius between these walls and that base surface there. I want this to be degree 2, a size 2 mil, and it does it nicely, so thank you for that. And let's keep on doing this. I might even go a bit bigger there. I'm going to try my luck. That does it. So I'll take this result as is because it's pretty decent. And now the icing on this will be here, small radius, and I'll go with 1 mil. Because I like to take my chances here. Let's see if we crash. And it doesn't, which is a surprise for me. I'll leave these set as default. Hopefully it closes it up, and it doesn't. So 2 points to be taken care of manually. One will be that one, and that's one. So stay tuned for this. I'll delete the construction history on this one, and then I'll extend that all the way there. I will be untrimming this surface, deleting that curved surface, and then I'll go into aligning this by projecting it in the normal direction onto that surface. So that hits that there. Let's see if the position influence helps anything. It doesn't. So let's add 1 more CV, and that does the job. And we have this little gap here. So what we will be doing is taking that surface, I'll take it down to degree 2, extending it there, then this surface becomes degree 5 again, and we align it curvature first to those 2 edges and then those 2 there. That curve and surface goes away. This gets untrimmed. That curve and surface goes away as well. And now we do the alignment by projecting. So that edge down on that. Let's see if we set it up as tangent. It does the job quite nicely. And remember, these two are already connected curvature. This is connected curvature. This one is as well. So if we have only tangent there, it's not a problem. It's a minuscule area and it's not going to change much. So I can accept that. It doesn't have to be always curvature. So what I've done here, I would be doing on the other bits there. I'm not going to bore you with that. I want to show you how we fix that nasty CV layout there. For that, I'm going to take these two and delete their construction history. And we see that these are ending there, which is cool, but check that out. That's nasty on many levels, so let's take care of that. What I'll be doing on the length, I'm going back to degree 2. The reason why it's doing that, it does keep some of that intention it had before. Thus cleaning it up. What I want to do now is actually slide this out a little bit. This is resembling to that one. This one slides that way. And then we untrim this surface, this one, and this one. And delete those curves on the surface. And we go ahead and we align them by projecting. So this is a bit of manual labor, but it gives you that nice quality for your model. And I want to be G2. And I'll add a few more CVs. Until I get my desired result. So we've got curvature on both sides. I knew it had it in it. Let's evaluate here. We do have that, so that's fine. Here the same. So we will proceed to align this surface by projection. And then on this side, same stuff. See, this is a simpler surface. This one is a bit more difficult to handle. And the reason why it's doing that, it's got a twist in it. It's twisting and it's connecting from a straight edge to a round one. So this is pushing that. It's driving that shape and it makes it a bit more complicated. But a few more CVs on the length of it will take care of that problem. There we go. Told you's gonna do the trick. Now I'll align this one as well. Here, adding one CV. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Coming back. That's nice. So what we need now is to clean this up. This area is, well, it is what it is. I try to keep away from profanity and make sure that you guys get the best of what I'm showing here. So that surface, I'm going to be going back on it to a degree 2. And then I'll make sure that this becomes a degree 5. Now, ideally, you would want these radii to line up as well, but we're doing this in a very quick and dirty, if you want to put it that way. It's actually quick and almost precise, but good for sketching stuff in. If you want to do it more of like A-class quality, then you would make sure that all of these CVs and hulls are lining up, so this line continues down here, and it would make everything a lot easier. But we're not doing that because this is just a skill builder, a sketching exercise. I'm not demonstrating any A-class stuff here. So those go away. I'll take those and I'll template them for a moment, and I'm going to be aligning that radius to those two radii. But it's going to be an edge alignment. This one as well. Now let's take those templates and bring them back. Take that surface there. And we'll pull these back like this. This one to be sitting on that hull. It will allow us to align them quite nicely. If we were lucky to hit the sweet spot, then you wouldn't need to align anything at all, but we will be doing that for our due diligence. This is a lot less work than making everything manually to sit perfectly, but it will lack that precision. So this is good. Now what I want is those to be the controls off. Now what I want to do is I'll hit accept here and leave it as is. This one I'll hit accept as well. I wanted to have the position set to 0 because what I want is to straighten these. Even though we're not full A-classing this, it's still better to have good CV layouts working for you. So I'll use the Plannerize Hull tool, and I'll get this dialed in like that. So based on the view, puts your CVs on straight line. Now you might ask why that mess, and it's because I've built these radii with a fillet tool, which takes in account its automatics and all that, and you see not everything is lining up. So normally this is why you would line everything up so that endpoint's sitting where this one is sitting, so you don't have that jump in there. It would line the hulls of these two radii nice and cleanly up. But as I said, that's a lot of work, and if you're just in the sketch modeling phase, you would avoid that because you want to be quick and nimble and keep changing things as your designer or whoever is delivering your design input would need you to do all that. What I will be doing now is aligning that radius to those surfaces by projecting it. So normal to the surface, turn off edge, I'll refer to that because I don't like the way it's looking. G2 projection. It doesn't want to do it. So use the view function. And you see it's working. So we'll go with the G1. This one also the same, G1. And for the sake of the connection, I'll add a few more CVs, and that's it. And we would need to take care of that as well. So bring this back. We know that these ones are sitting well. This one is a bit of an oddball. So what I want to do is find a way to get this in quicker and easier. And I want to get in G2 here, this one to that one as well. Perfect. So what I will be doing is I will go ahead and planarize those holes. So I'm clicking this until I like the way it looks. So this is sitting on that line, as I said, that plane. This will be a bit rotated. This is already better. The current surface goes away. Let's see this. So let's pull these onto their correct position. There we go. This one has to sit there. What I like to have is that the CVs of this surface, they're following at least the first two CVs, that they're following that line there. So I will be looking at an area where my final CV is sitting on that hull there visually. And now I'll be using the planarize hull tool again and try to get this in like that. Same here. And then now we'll see a much nicer layout. And let's just project a line, this onto this. Trim this back. Looks good. So that's a quick and dirty realignment, and that's how those corners should start looking. Let's project normal to that surface, this edge there. Trim this back. Hopefully it doesn't crash. That's it. Save it up. Take your templates, put them on the proper layer. So we've got here the mechanism that will get you your liquid out of your perfume bottle. And we've got the cap in there. The cap is your homework. And what I would like you to do is go ahead and what we've done around these edges, bring them all the way up here, add some radii, and you will have had a fun exercise building some basic skills, using the fillet tool, the corner blend tool, basic modeling, skins, Y-rails, offsets. All of that stuff is what you need to be able to build more and more complex things. So thank you for tuning in. And if you want to, once you're done, pop in a comments and pictures or make me see what you've done. This is my challenge to you, and I'm challenging you guys to challenge yourself to do something that maybe it's new for you, you haven't done before, and it would open up some new avenues. If you've done this before, maybe this is just a nice refresher or a nice exercise. Maybe it takes you out of your comfort zone. Whatever floats your boat or whatever makes you happy. For me, I'm happy to do these things and showing you some of the simple basic things that I'm using to get some volumes in. So, as I said, thank you for tuning in. Subscribe if you want to see more nice and cool stuff like this, and I'll catch you soon.